Warning: this video contains heavy spoilers for Chapter 5 of Rebellion Saga. Roughly around the halfway point of Rebellion Saga, you will encounter a boss fight which is probably very different from anything you've faced in a Fire Emblem game before, the Golem. This boss can be pretty scary to face blind. During one of my streams, I was asked if I could give some advice on how to beat it, seeing as I was the one who developed the fight, so that's what I'm gonna do in this video. Whether you just want some help to tackle this boss fight on your first playthrough, or whether you're struggling to defeat it on hard, lunatic, or even your challenge mode run, this video is for you. I will go through the entire boss fight, talk about how it changes with each difficulty, and then give some tips on how to best deal with it. Let us begin. The Golem is fought at the end of Chapter 5, Darkest Descent, and is located in the final chamber of the dungeon. It starts out inactive and will not power up until one of your units enters this zone. This gives you plenty of time to prepare and heal up your troops before you initiate the fight. You can even wait for any debuffs to run out on your units. I personally like to take this moment to promote my units with any master seals I have lying around. Once you step within the Golem's range, the map will begin to shake briefly to indicate that the fight has begun, and the Golem will power up on the next turn. The Golem has two phases: its active phase, where its eyes are glowing and it's holding a giant sword, and its passive phase, when it's powered down and inactive. It will go back and forth between these two forms every turn. The Golem has a massive sword which hits incredibly hard. Despite shooting flames, it deals physical damage, so you want a high defense unit like Galahad to tank it. Other high HP characters like Helios, Ragnar, Reynard, Dimitri, or Nalani may also be able to tank a hit from it if they are properly trained. The Golem has 4 skills which you need to be wary of. Wary Fighter, meaning it can't double or be doubled, so speed is not going to be a factor in this fight. Colossal Blow, meaning you can't counterattack against it. Savage Blow, which affects all of your units within 2 tiles of the Golem whenever it attacks. Lastly, it has Resilience, meaning critical hits against it will only deal double damage as opposed to triple. With 120 HP and a boatload of defense, the Golem may seem indestructible when you first encounter it, but there is a way to overcome this. The most important mechanic of this fight are the armor platings. These items passively increase the Golem's durability and must be destroyed in order to damage it. For every 10 times you attack the Golem, you will break 1 armor plating. You can check how many hits are left by viewing their durability, and keep in mind that brave weapons only count as a single hit. On normal and hard mode, the Golem has 2 armor platings. On lunatic, it has 3. And if you have challenge mode stronger bosses active, it gains yet another plating, meaning that it can potentially have up to 4. The Golem takes effective damage from any anti-armor weapons, such as hammers, armor slayers, heavy spears, and thanatomes. Additionally, every time the Golem powers down, it will throw its sword away, and it will continue to fight on its own. When you destroy the sword, you can loot it and use it against the Golem. It only has a durability of 5, but it deals around the same damage as an armor slayer. The Golem is not particularly mobile. It only has 2 move and gets 1 additional move on challenge mode stronger bosses. This means that you don't have to take a hit from it if you don't want to. However, you are on the clock once this fight begins. The longer it goes on, the more intense it gets, so you don't want to stall too much. In addition to the Golem and its swords, you will have to deal with a myriad of minions spawning during the battle. You'll have to face abominations, which are slow, powerful, lumbering terrors who can hit incredibly hard and debuff their target's defense. Keep your Golem tanking unit away from these at all costs. Abominations are vulnerable to fire, so a Flame Sword, Elfire, or Bolganon Tome can make short work of them. You will also have to deal with aberrations, floating eyes which can shoot magical beams that temporarily silence their target and reduce their resistance. Being flyers, aberrations are weak to arrows, so make sure you have a bow user like Callum deal with them. Maybe the most scary minions in this fight are the toxic gas clouds. These spawn all over the chamber and cannot be killed. They will slowly move towards your units, always dealing 10 damage to those they hit, ignoring any defensive skills. These gas clouds will build up over the course of the fight, and at some point there will be so many of them that you simply cannot safely fight the Golem anymore. These act as a bit of a timer. If the entire room fills up with gas clouds, then the fight pretty much becomes impossible. Once the fight has gone on for a while, you will also have to deal with Forge Spirits warping in. These red balls of fire float in the air and will slowly move towards the golem. While they aren't dangerous to your units, they will attempt to heal the golem if it has taken any damage, and they also shield nearby monsters, increasing their defense, so you need to deal with them quickly once they spawn. Lastly, if you play PH mode, 2 channelers will spawn during the fight and disable your staves until they are dealt with. They are not overly threatening, but you need to deal with them quickly. The fight against the golem is very much an exercise of advancing and retreating. When the golem powers down, you can pile on it with all your available units, and when it powers back up, you need to move them outside its range. While the golem is active, this is a good time to clear away any minions, since most of your units can't safely damage the golem. This boss fight starts off very basic, but it gets increasingly more complicated as time goes on, and you might find that your resources are stretched very thin when you have to deal with a myriad of different threats. So, what are some general tips on how to deal with the golem fight? Well, first and foremost, longbows are your friend. Since the golem can't retaliate at 3 range, this allows your units to chip it even when it's active, and every attack on those armor platings will add up over the course of a long fight. Characters who can wield longbows are therefore very useful to bring into the dungeon. Walter and Rosalina are both incredibly useful with their ability to canto plus away from harm. Other characters may need to be rescued after they attack. You can also start the fight off by firing some longbow shots right after you activate the golem, because as I said, every attack matters. You get 2 rallies over the course of this fight, one at the very start and one at the end. I usually start off with Paladin's Vigilance, as you're not really dealing a lot of damage to the golem anyway, so the extra avoid is nice, and then I tend to pick Rose Knight's Charge towards the end of the battle. Sentry's Vigil can also be nice if you have it unlocked, since it increases your vision, making it less likely for the terrorists to jump you out of the fog. Divine's Mercy is also very good for reducing damage from the aberrations, as they can be quite scary. The character tanking the golem in the center of the room should be given an Ancestor Scroll to ensure they won't be crit, as the golem can do that on higher difficulties. Luckily, there's a scroll available in the rightmost bookcase in the dungeon's previous room, so you should always have one available. If you tank with Galahad, remember that his personal skill heals him when he's alone, which can be very useful. Debuffing skills are very powerful against the golem. Callum's Blinding Shot essentially lowers its hit chance by 20%, which can make the character tanking the golem get a few lucky dodges in. Nathaniel's Wailing Soul is also immensely useful in this fight, as adding 20% crit on the golem can make a huge difference. Another immensely useful tool to deal with this fight is Alinora's Frostbite Tome. While her magic most likely isn't high enough to freeze the golem at the start of the fight, you may be able to do so once you remove a few armor platings. There's also another tool that can be incredibly good against the golem, and those are Light Runes, or the Shinebind Staff, which allows you to put down light runes at range. If you went the A route, you should have gotten a Shinebind Staff from Nathaniel's village. And if you went the B route and recruited Alan, he will have given you one, in addition to any light runes he passively creates due to his personal skill. Putting down a few light runes to hinder the golem's mobility can make the fight so much easier, especially when you have to deal with monsters who may have gotten close to it and are threatening your squishy units. Lastly, there is one character that is insane against the golem when properly trained, and that is Helios. His personal skill, Ignis, can multiply its bonus damage whenever he gets a critical hit. If you give him the skill ring and the critical ring, and barrier him up beforehand, it is not uncommon for Helios to deal around 60 to 80 damage to the golem with an Ignis crit, which can take a huge chunk of its HP away. This is arguably pretty luck-based, but it's a nice desperation move if you really need to kill the boss fast. Also remember that Nathaniel's personal skill is very useful when setting up this strategy. So to round up my talking points, the golem can be a pretty scary boss fight, especially when you play on higher difficulties, but as long as you focus on maximizing your attacks when the fight is slow, you should be alright. Longbows are amazing, and any debuff skills you can put on the golem can really pay off long term. Make sure your units have concoctions and elixirs on them in case they need healing, and torches can also be nice, as the Fog of War can prevent you from seeing certain enemies spawn nearby. Make sure that you spread your units evenly out across the room so you can see everything that goes on, and try not to have them move too far away from the golem when it's inactive. My biggest advice on this map is to ignore most of the enemies while the golem is powered down, even the golem swords, as they aren't terribly threatening on their own. Instead, just have your units hit the golem as many times as they can while they are able. Use Galahad with an Ancestor Scroll in his inventory to keep the golem centralized in the chamber, as that makes it easier to manage the room and ensure that your units don't accidentally end up in its range. Keep hitting it as much as you can, and if all else fails, try to set up a big Ignis crit or freeze it with Alinora's Frostbite Tome once it's weak enough. Keep hitting the golem, and I'm sure you'll bring it down eventually. So yeah, that's my advice on how to deal with the Golem of Rebellion Saga. Do you have any additional insight that you would like to share? Put it in the comment section below and I'll make sure I'll heart it for visibility if it is good advice. If you found this video useful, leave a like and a comment, and I hope you guys are still enjoying Rebellion Saga. You can visit our Discord to download it and try it out for yourself. My name is Mangs, and I'll see you next time.